And now,
hey everybody, Stinger here. I want to invite you to a pretty cool podcast.
Watch this film. Be quite nice. Have a good time. You'll be very evil. And you'll love that Danhausen.
Hey, this is Big Sexy Kevin Nash.
Yes, it is I, Big E, but more importantly, it is you.
And you might remember me from such YouTube greats as Being the Elite and Chris Daniels Almost Dies.
And if you're looking for the very best wrestling content, you better come to Good Mic Work Commentary.
And I'm just going to tell you now, as a role model, you got to tune into this, because if you also want to be a role model, you got to learn from the best.
We have a rapport, and we have been so close over so many years. This is not a cameo or a paid endorsement in any regard. This is a message of friendship.
Man, we met 20 years ago, 21 years ago now. Time is flying, isn't it?
I want to wish you all the best in your YouTube channel, and hopefully I can maybe make a special guest appearance on there sometime.
And I used to say, hey, Greg Morgan, and he used to say, please call me Greg, and I wouldn't do it.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Awesome YouTube channel. Now, if you've seen these videos before, you know what I'm talking about.
We would do verbal chain wrestling. You know, we'd be off in the yard, the schoolyard at recess.
And he's also a 40-year-old wrestling fan. That's a long damn time.
And we'd just be staring at each other, and he'd say, hammerlock. And I'd say, all right, I've reversed the hammerlock into a hammerlock of my own, then I put you in a headlock. And, you know, that would go on for hours.
He's not going to fill your head with bullshit. He's going to tell you real deal, what's up, and that's that.
Raw, SmackDown, NXT. This guy covers it all, my friends. I want you to go to his page, Good Mic Work on YouTube.
Check out Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube.
But we would have fun. We would run around. There would be a wooden hoop we would hit with a stick, and it would go down a hill.
I'm about to go and watch a few videos myself.
It's a very practical apparatus.
We're really lacking in the world right now with some people that have a freaking brain cells.
And now look at him. He has more YouTube views and subscribers than I do, and I'm fine with it because I played such an integral role in his upbringing.
Don't you dare be sour!
We always talked about wrestling. He was a big Lou Thez guy, and of course I had an affectation for the Hackenschmidts.
Clap for Good Mic Work Commentaries!
This is RJ City, a wrestling rock on tour.
And feel the
Listen to the podcast, subscribe.
You are watching Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Good Mic Work Commentaries.
Just want to encourage all you guys to check out Good Mic Work Commentaries.
And if you don't, we're going to have a problem.
Do it!
Do it.
Do it now!
Thanks a lot for the encomium and the nice words about my father's Hall of Fame induction.
Hope our paths cross again sometime down the road. Would love to shake your hand again, and good luck on this podcast.
And you don't just watch it one time. You can rewatch every single one of them.
And now, Good Mic Work Commentaries and Greg Morgan presents the Winged Eagle Podcast.
Happy Saturday. What's going on, guys? And welcome to your Winged Eagle Podcast for May 14th, 2022. Good to see you guys back up here for a Saturday. I want to apologize right off the bat here. Still a little bit under the weather. This all started last Saturday during the podcast, and I thought I might just have a little cold for a couple of days. It's been a week. I've tested negative for COVID. I don't have that, but I've been extremely under the weather with a super gnarly head cold. Just congestion and pressure and runny nose and sneezing like a bastard. It's been a pain in the ass all week, but I feel like I'm getting there. I'm pushing through the end of this now. It's finally starting to wind down, but I'm still not great today. But I wanted to come up here anyway and do a podcast because there is a lot of wrestling news to get into. So this is going to be a very wrestling news-heavy show. We're going to talk about a lot of news. We're going to briefly look at some of the interesting results from this past week's Raw, Dynamite, Rampage, and SmackDown. And of course, basically going to be news-heavy. And we will take a look at what the Double or Nothing card looks like right now. So on tap for today, we're going to talk about our friend Sonny again 2 weeks in a row. We're going to talk about Kota Ibushi and his fallout with New Japan. MJF's contract is finishing up in about a year and a half. He might be bouncing to WWE. Roman Reigns also has a new contract, and he's going to be taking the summer off from the Fed in a couple of months, so that's interesting. There's also some Eric Bischoff, CM Punk beef we'll touch on. Lacey Evans is apparently now a heel. Whatevs. Ronda versus Becky Lynch is penciled in for the WrestleMania main event, according to Meltzer, and there might be a big Money in the Bank stipulation change, according to Cody Rhodes, on that Money in the Bank commercial that's been airing. We'll take a look back at the ratings. Like I said, we'll discuss a little bit of this past week's Raw, just a couple of the key points. I want to mention Dynamite as well. We watched that together on Wednesday, and that was fantastic with the Jeff Hardy-Darby Allin match and the MJF Wardlow contract signing. Martha Hart was in the house. A lot of stuff going on there. Kind of lackluster Rampage and SmackDowns last night, so we won't be getting into that much of those shows. Just a couple of the key matches like, the Owen tournament stuff and Scorpio Sky and Kaz. And Raquel Rodriguez took on Ronda Rousey last night on SmackDown for the title, which was kind of interesting. So it's going to be kind of a quick episode today, 90 minutes. Is all that we're going to be able to do here because I have to head off to work, and plus I don't want to overspeak because my voice is sketchy right now, so I want to make sure I can deliver to you guys as much as my voice as possible. So just for today, we're going to skip a lot of the pleasantries. I want to say hi to a few people in the chat, but I just can't. I don't want to waste my voice by just shouting out every single person like I always do every week. We will pick that back up next week, but I feel like I got to conserve my energy here. We do have a good weekend of videos though scheduled tomorrow night. We're going to be watching Judgment Day 2002. It is the 20th anniversary of the show this month. It also coincides with the 20th anniversary of WWF changing to WWE, which also took place, I think, this week in history. Also, Stone Cold Steve Austin had taken his ball and gone home right, I believe, before this show aired. So WWE was going through a really interesting time. It's an interesting card too. Undertaker and Hulk Hogan for the title. I believe Jericho and Triple H face in a Hell in the Cell match. So we're going to be watching that tomorrow night, 5 p.m. I do have a link in the description below for you if you want to check that out. And as you can see, my eyes are watering because of my nose. So I'm trying my best, guys. Please bear with me, and thank you very much for being here this afternoon. I will be knocking out all the super chats that come in. I want to thank How Wheezy right off the bat. Thank you for the $5, dude. Would it be cool if they brought in Sergeant Slaughter as Lacey's manager? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if she needs Slaughter, although now that she is a heel, I don't know what the hell they're going to do to her. Pardon me while I wipe my eyes out here. Jesus. As long as I can talk, I'm okay. I don't care what about what I look like. Just reading the chat here. Okay, everybody's cool. Everybody's here, and I can be heard and seen, right? All right, right on. Okay, so like I said, we need to jump into the news pretty quickly here because I don't have a ton of time today to get through this. Plus, the longer I talk, the more I'm going to decline and deteriorate in my voice, and I don't want this podcast to be unlistenable in the future. This past week, we were pretty light on the channel as well. I wanted to come up last Monday and do a Raw review. My voice couldn't handle it. We did do a Dynamite watch-along on Wednesday, but again, I wasn't 100%. We did a Backlash watch-along last Sunday because I didn't think I'd be able to perform a podcast, just speak constantly for an hour discussing the show. I thought maybe coming up and doing a live reaction and just kind of casually hanging out would be a better idea. So we did that last Sunday, but what happened was every time I do a watch along or a live reaction, I just have to turn my microphone down so it doesn't pick up any of the audio. I forgot to do that. So WWE blocked it because a little bit of audio later on in the show, I think when I got up to go use the bathroom, got picked up, they blocked the video. So we had nothing to discuss in terms of WrestleMania Backlash. That video was only up for a couple of hours and it was down. So I feel like I'm behind. That's why I forced myself to come up here today and at least talk to you guys because there's a lot to get into. So we are going to start with Tammy Sytch. Of course, Sunny, we all know, has been in trouble with the law multiple times throughout the past few years, multiple DUIs and all sorts of crazy charges that she, has on her record now. And as we all know, back on March 25th, she was involved in a auto accident that took the life of a 75-year-old man, crashed into a parked car at a stoplight with a blood alcohol level 3 times the legal limit and an open bottle of vodka in the car, which is no surprise. I said this prior to the toxicology report coming back that if anybody wants to give Sunny the benefit of the doubt, you are wasting your time. She is 100% wasted during this accident. I have had no doubt about it at all, just based on her track record. I would like to be the innocent until proven guilty guy, but that shit was way too obvious. You don't just smash into a car, a parked or a stopped car at a light at 8:30 at night if you're just completely stone cold sober and sound mind and body. So she has got a serious drinking problem. And she now has finally taken the life of another human, which we all knew was going to happen. I spoke on this every time that she was getting arrested for these DUIs. I said, what is it going to take for a judge to throw her in jail for an extended period of time, instead of letting her out to terrorize the public as she gets behind the wheel with no license, no insurance, no nothing. She continues to drive, continues to drink and drive every time she's allowed to walk out of the courtroom. This was very frustrating for a lot of fans and a lot of people watching this story, saying, what is it going to take for this woman to finally have some accountability for all of the damage that she has caused? And so finally, a week ago, of course, we talked about it last week on the podcast, she was officially arrested and charged with 9 counts, including DUI manslaughter, all stemming from that accident back on March 25th. This adds to the 11 counts she has pending in New Jersey for a grand total of 20, count them, charges that she has to answer for in 2 different states. She's already had, I think, 3 previous DUI convictions. So many of us were wondering, why is a judge, like they did last week, allowing her to bond herself out? She is clearly a danger to the public, because no matter how many times she gets arrested, she gets right behind the wheel again and drives drunk almost immediately. And this is a recurring thing. And this is something she probably does all the time. These are just the times that she's been pulled over. She's probably hammered behind the wheel every fucking night. And this is just an incident where, she got caught by ramming into somebody and killing them. So finally, yesterday, Friday, she had a hearing to revoke her bond and take her into custody until her charges are, they go to trial or there's a plea deal or whatever. The judge agreed and stated that just putting a blow box in the car or giving her treatment or any other sort of solution that they had in mind wasn't going to be enough to ensure the public's safety. And she ruled to revoke Sunny's bail. So Sunny was taken immediately into custody right there. She hugged her boyfriend or whatever, and she is now gone. So the judge finally did the right thing. I don't know what took it so long to get to this point, why her previous 2 or 3 DUI arrests. I know she did spend a year in jail, but I'm curious why, curious why her previous arrests didn't land her in trouble like this. So now she's going to be in custody until she faces the music for these charges. These charges could carry a maximum sentence of 30 years. And when you look at Sunny's prior charges and her prior arrests and her prior convictions, how is she not going to serve this full time? You know what I mean? So I really hope, I know this sounds terrible, but I hope Sunny spends at least the next 30 years in jail. I hope she doesn't come out until she's 70 years old, 80 years old. Yeah, probably 80. She's probably older than I am at this point. So this was the right call. This is finally a little bit of accountability to Sunny, because as I've been complaining about ever since this all started, is that Sunny seems to show no remorse. Did you see the Twitter rant she went on last week? I think she was arguing with Don Tony or something, and he was just trying to look into, specific facts of the case, who owned the car, who bought the car, that sort of shit, which I don't even think matters. But she was getting very defensive about that. You don't know what you're talking about, and you just broadcast from your mom's basement. She just lashes out at everybody and makes it sound like we've got everything wrong. There's been dash cam footage. You guys see the dash cam footage of the arrest, the footage from the courtroom yesterday. She's acting as if this is all some big misunderstanding. All of 3 or 4 of her DUI convictions we have it wrong. She was innocent. This was all some big misunderstanding, along with the 20 other charges that she has pending. She absolutely has zero remorse. She has zero accountability. She truly believes in her heart that she has done nothing wrong when she is a complete and total menace to society. She's a fucking scumbag, an absolute scumbag, who repeatedly seems to just brush off the law. And even in some interviews and things that she does and says, she almost like brags about her time in jail and the special treatment she gets and everything. She is as low can get. And I'm finally happy that now some justice has been served, because that's all I care about is justice for the victims and accountability for this piece of shit that has been terrorizing and putting many, many hundreds of lives in danger literally on a daily basis, with her alcohol and drug problem. So now that she is in custody, I don't see her getting out. I don't know what's going to happen with this, with these charges, if there's actually going to be a trial here, or if her lawyers are going to advise her to plea, which is probably going to happen because there's really not much. I'm no lawyer, but I can't see how Sunny can go on trial for this and somehow avoid any sort of serious consequences. I mean, everything is proven. There is no reasonable doubt whatsoever. She has done all of these things, and it's fucking on camera. And I don't see any way that she's going to be able to get out of any sort of substantial prison time. So maybe her lawyers will get some sort of crazy plea deal where she'll only have to do 5 years or 10 years, which honestly I still think is not enough. And she needs to face the music for this. She needs to be held accountable for what she did, because had she gotten the help, had some judge thrown her in jail prior to this, or had she gotten the help she needed before March 25th, poor Julian Lasseter might be walking around alive right now. So I have zero remorse. I hope that the food is fucking nasty. I hope she has to shit in front of people. I hope she's freezing cold every night. And I hope she's breathed her last breath of freedom until she's like 80 years old. I honestly mean that. She does not deserve to function in regular society. She doesn't deserve to be free. She deserves to be locked the fuck up for a long ass time. And, I guess that if you're in jail 10, 20, 30 years, that should be enough to detox your ass, hopefully. But it's pretty sad when you see what alcohol can really do to somebody, the damage they can cause when they are so crazy addicted to alcohol. So, my advice to everybody, if you've ever had even an inkling that you might have a problem with alcohol, do something about it, because it can be absolutely horrible. It amazes me that alcohol is legal and something like weed is not. If Sunny was just a fucking pothead, she wouldn't have killed anybody, but alcohol is super crazy fucking dangerous, and it's easily and widely available to anybody over 21 years of age. And there's no real way to stop people from having these addictions. And if Sunny doesn't care enough about herself to get help, then she's never going to get help, and she's going to continue to put other people's lives at risk. So she's in jail now. She's going to have no choice. But, unless she makes some prison wine behind her toilet, which she probably will, she'll probably get some fruit and some Kool-Aid and some bread, throw it in a plastic bag and stick it behind her toilet, and she'll drink that. She probably will, because she's gross and a coward and a piece of shit. So I'm sure she thinks this is all fine. If she does manage to find herself out of jail and she does an interview or a podcast or anything like that, I can't even imagine what she would talk about and say about her experience. She lives a life of delusion. She lives in a fantasy world, and I really hope this is a reality check for her, and she realizes that she's going to be sitting in that cold-ass cell for many, many, many years. We still don't know what's going to happen. This all has to still go to court, and it's probably going to be a long process. Even if it takes a couple of years, I take comfort in knowing that at least Sunny is in jail during this time, and her lawyers won't pull any fast shit or do any appeals to get her out, prior to trial. Hopefully she is there in custody, and she stays there until all this shit is hammered out. So this very well may be the final time we talk about Sunny. I'm sure we'll talk about her again when this stuff starts getting settled in court and she gets convicted, she gets sentenced. We will probably revisit this again, but that could take some time. So at least for now, she's not going to be, making any money on OnlyFans or lashing out at people on social media. She's going to be sitting in a cold ass cell, cold, scared, and hating her life. And couldn't happen to a nicer person. Good riddance, Suddy. Fuck off. So that's the deal with Sunny. Let's move on. Kota Ibushi and New Japan apparently are right in the middle of some huge falling out right now. I don't know what the hell's going on here. it's really hard because this is all like, in translation and transcripts from Kota Ibushi's tweets. To simplify the whole deal here and to speak about this as somebody that knows very little about it, it looked as if he was, Kota Ibushi on social media, specifically Twitter, was expressing his frustration over his contract with New Japan and his shoulder injury. And he threatened to expose management for harassment. He even hinted at the Yakuza involvement, which is fucking crazy. And that's very controversial because New Japan's pretty busy right now. They got the Super Juniors, Best of the Super Juniors tournament going on right now this weekend. And, of course, Forbidden Door is coming up next month in June with AEW. So this whole Kota Ibushi situation in New Japan, we just got to keep our eye on it. I don't know if he's officially gone from the company yet, but based on everything that was going on there, I can't really see a way that he can stick around there after some of this stuff and him arguing with, a member of management. So Kota Ibushi is an amazing talent. I don't know where he would actually land if he is actually free and clear and let go or whatever, but I was really hoping he would be a part of Forbidden Door, provided he was healthy enough to wrestle. That does not seem to be the case now. And that's a shame because I think he was the first guy to unify, right? The New Japan and the Intercontinental title. He is a stupidly good wrestler, and it's just a shame that all this is happening. But I know very little about it from a behind-the-scenes standpoint. So we'll keep our eye on Kota Ibushi and what the hell's going on there. But just kind of hope for the best in that situation because it's pretty ugly. We got to talk about MJF, I think. Pardon me 1 minute. I'm going to pause. Sorry about that. You guys did not want to see that sneeze. That would have been awful. Pardon me about that. So anyway, let's talk about MJF. There has been talk about MJF's contract, which I believe is up in 2024. So he's got a little bit over a year and a half or so left on his deal, I believe. And there have been a lot of reports over the past few weeks and months about MJF's contract. He's always hinted on social media and in his promos that he could be leaving for WWE when his contract is up. It's part of his gimmick. It's part of his character. He's the type of guy that's probably just going to go wherever the money is because it's literally his gimmick to be self-absorbed and selfish. And, with him mentioning some of these things in promos on AEW always made me think that they're just, playing into it. It could just be Tony Khan and MJF really helping get MJF, some contract, right? It might be MJF trying to help get him some contract leveraging when his contract does come up. If he wants to get the idea, plant the idea in WWE's head that he's interested in going over there, they reportedly are interested in him too. This guy is about to get super paid. Now, in terms of if he's actually going to leave for WWE, that is not even on my radar yet. I can't say one way or the other if he will or he won't. I believe that he has got a big, giant career in AEW there if he wants to stay there. But if he's going to be a guy like Cody or something who's just going to go with whoever gives him the most money, that's going to be really interesting too. And I think that in the next couple of years, it's going to be a really interesting time with some of these wrestling contracts because a lot of fans, they haven't been able to witness and experience any really true good wrestling competition in their lives, or they were too young to remember, WCW and WWE, both being able to negotiate and compete for talent. Now it's a little bit different because WWE and AEW both have massive amounts of money to spend. Back in the day, back in the Attitude Era, WWE and WCW were usually on different levels financially. Back in the 90s, Ted Turner, bought the company, and then they had a bunch of money to spend, and everybody talked about Eric Bischoff spending all of Ted Turner's money to lure talent away from Vince that he could no longer afford. But then when WWE got rolling, the Attitude Era hit, they took over in the ratings. They became the bigger company, and WCW, had all sorts of ownership changes and things like that. Things changed, and WWE became the more attractive place to go. And now we're in a situation where both companies really are probably on equal footing money-wise. WWE has brought in ridiculous amounts of money from Saudi Arabia, Fox, and the USA Network that has completely changed how wrestling companies, generate profits and revenue, because this is unheard of, unspeakable money that you would have never seen before. Where back in the day, they pretty much relied on ticket sales and pay-per-view buys and a lot of merchandise. Now that's almost secondary. They just get these big TV deals, and that can supply them with enough money to do anything. So you have both companies with stupid money to spend and can pretty much afford anything and can pretty much just be a bidding war between the two companies. There's going to be a lot of talent that's going to find themselves seriously paid well. And MJF is going to be one of those guys, because if WWE wants to bring him in, they're going to have to make it a multi-million-dollar deal. And if Tony Khan doesn't want to lose MJF, he's going to have to match or beat that deal. So that's great for MJF. That's great for a lot of guys whose contracts are coming up. There's a lot of wrestlers in the future that are going to be being paid pretty handsomely. And I think MJF is probably going to have one of the biggest raises in wrestling history. What do you think he's making right now? Think about who he was prior to AEW, his MLW stuff. He wasn't really that big of a star. So what do you think his contract is for? $300,000 or something like that in AEW? He's probably going to be looking at $2 million plus, when his next contract comes up, because WWE might just want to spend that money. They might think it's worth it to spend that money just to take him away from AEW, since he is one of their pillars, I believe. And if they do that, and they bring MJF in, they pay him a ton of money, it's not like they're going to send him right to NXT. You don't pay a guy that amount of money and then make him chase the 24/7 title. So go ahead and get that out of your head right now. Well, if he goes there, they'll just put him in a tag team or put him in NXT or make him chase the 24/7 title. That's not what they do to multi-million-dollar contracts. If they're going to pay that guy that much, they're going to want to get their money's worth, you would assume. So he'll be hot-shotted right to the main roster and in a top angle or storyline, or be, a heavily featured member of the main roster right off the bat as soon as he goes there. But I personally think he'd be better off in AEW. Sorry for bumping the table there. I think he should stay in AEW and at least for one more contract and develop his legacy there. I think this guy definitely will be a world champion in AEW. Could even happen this year, but again, that depends on what his relationship is with AEW and Tony Khan, because apparently there was some sort of an argument back in April between the two where they actually did argue, and they had some sort of an issue with each other over the status of MJF's contract, and there's a little bit of heat there. So if Tony Khan wants to ensure that MJF sticks around, maybe belting him up this year and trying to get him to sign a contract extension is the route to go. But if you want to wait for his contract to end, if his contract comes all the way up for expiration, I feel like he's gone. I feel like if MJF's going to stick around, he'll sign an extension prior to his contract coming up. But he might want to weigh WWE's offer. He might want to see what they offer him. And this is going to be, like I said, a really interesting time in wrestling, and a time that I haven't experienced in about 22, 23 years, and some fans haven't experienced at all. Unfortunately, much of wrestling Twitter is too far up their own ass with this tribalism shit to even appreciate how cool this is going to be, to see guys jumping, moving, getting good contracts. And we might see some big surprises. Cody was the first one. Cody jumping to WWE was a huge deal. Bryan Danielson jumping to AEW was also a huge deal. CM Punk turning up there was as well. So if you start having other contracts like, MJF and maybe even some WWE guys who might be lured over by some of Tony Khan's money, it's going to make for a really interesting next 2 to 5 years, I believe. So my advice is sit back and enjoy it. This is going to be fun. Let's have a good time watching where guys go, because I got to watch all this for myself back in the 90s with WWE and WCW. Guys were moving around left and right. I've mentioned it so many times in the past. Look at WWE and WCW's roster around 1996 and look at how they switched. Look at that roster in 96 and then look at both rosters 3 years prior. Look at WCW in 93. Who was there? Austin, Cactus, Dustin, Vader, all the guys like that Pillman, who had all now gone to WWE, and, Diesel, Nash, Hogan, Savage, guys like that were all in WCW. So it's cool when you see roster, the rosters balance out and guys move back and forth. It's fun. So we get a chance to see that again. We're witnessing it right now because, TNA really never was that. They did lure Kurt Angle away from WWE, and they got some signings, Flair and Jeff Hardy and Booker T and Cactus. All those guys went over there. But TNA was much less stable. AEW is a wrestling company that has a cable TV program consistently every single week, and they will get a new TV deal when this one is up. They're not going to go anywhere on cable TV anytime soon, where Impact just seemed like they were or TNA seemed like a little bit all over the place. So it doesn't feel like the same. It doesn't feel like the same type of bidding war. You have a NFL owner and Vince McMahon and WWE going to be competing for talent. That's a lot of money. That's really cool. So I'm not too worried about MJF at this point. I don't really have a strong opinion on where he should go. Don't give a fuck. I think he should stay in AEW, but if he's a guy that just wants the money and WWE's willing to pay that money in order to take away a top star from AEW, he might do it. And I swear, it's funny, it's ironic that this happens. I know that was definitely the strategy of WCW. A lot of times they were willing to pay guys to jump just so they could steal talent from WWE. So I can imagine that WWE might want to be doing the same thing to AEW. Hey, if we can outbid them, we should. That way we can take away, some of their top stars. So we'll see how all that shakes out in the next couple of years and the MJF situation and what he winds up doing in the future. Big match coming up, assumingly at Double or Nothing against Wardlow. That whole thing has been fantastic. That whole deal, that whole program has been so much fun. So we will keep our eye on MJF and see if one day he does turn up in WWE. And if he does, how crazy would it be if he shows up there and attacks Cody or something like that? Might be a lot of fun. Speaking of contracts, Roman Reigns has not only signed a new contract with WWE, but it looks like he's going to be taking some time off as well. Now, Roman made news last week during a house show, I believe in Trenton, New Jersey, where he got on the mic after his match and said it might be the last time he was going to be in the city. And fans started freaking out. Is he going to retire? I didn't even comment on it because I didn't think there was even really a reason to. I don't see Roman Reigns going anywhere anytime soon. Maybe he could take a little bit less of a house show schedule, sure, but I wasn't really concerned with him leaving WWE. They're building their entire company around this guy. I don't think he's going to be leaving really anytime soon. And he has signed a new contract with WWE, which will keep him around for quite some time. However, he still is going to be taking some time off. So he's advertised for Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, but nothing in between. So I suppose there's going to be 4 weeks of television where Roman Reigns is not going to be on Raw or SmackDown or any of the live events, which is weird because he's carrying both of your titles right now. So what do you do in his absence? I mean, assuming he hangs on to both of these titles until you get to Money in the Bank, I'm assuming he will have a defense at Hell in the Cell, perhaps, right? And then probably a defense at Money in the Bank. So if he survives both of those with both titles intact, he's not going to be here for the entire month of July. And I think SummerSlam is at the end of July again this year. So that's a little bit weird. It would be nice if they could elevate the IC and the US titles to be the top titles on Raw and SmackDown in that absence, like I've been begging them to do for months, but that's a big if. So does that mean WWE is just going to tread water until he's gone? They're just going to go through the motions and just put on random-ass TV shows for 4 weeks prior to SummerSlam, perhaps? And if he is going to be off TV until SummerSlam, how is he going to build an angle with somebody to face anybody at SummerSlam? So that implies that maybe he's going to be dropping one of these belts or something. We've got Money in the Bank coming up, which incidentally, Cody Rhodes did the commercial for Money in the Bank at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. And he mentioned in the commercial that the winner of Money in the Bank gets a chance to main event WrestleMania. What's that all about? What are they talking about? Does he mean the Royal Rumble? So what's happening here is they are either changing the rules of Money in the Bank, or they have just somehow made this commercial and it's made it past the editing, which I don't see how that's possible, with them not realizing that Cody kind of misspoke there. So when was the last time they tried to do this? 2007, right? It was Kennedy won the Money in the Bank and he said, I'm going to cash in my Money in the Bank at next year's WrestleMania, which was a big mistake because number one, WWE sucks at booking long-term stuff. And then number two, you got to count on being healthy for all of that and stay in good graces with management. And of course, by the time we got to the following year, I think Kennedy did have some sort of an injury or something like that, and Edge wound up beating him for the briefcase. So they never even made it that far. So if they were going to try to attempt something like, oh, the winner of the Money in the Bank gets a title shot at WrestleMania, how are they going to be able to book that like 9-10 months in advance? That's a long time. So I think that's just some sort of a weird mistake. With Cody doing the commercial, it makes me wonder that maybe they've got him penciled in to win this thing. I said right from the start when Cody got there, everybody was like, oh, he should win Money in the Bank and then win the Universal title or win the WWE title. And when Cody came out on Raw and cut that promo about Dusty and stuff, I'm like, we kind of knew what his intentions were going to be coming in. I'm not saying Cody can't win the Money in the Bank briefcase and then cash in and win the championship. But I think for a guy like Cody, for a babyface like Cody, and for the story he's telling, he has to call his shot. I can't see him coming out, taking advantage of a beaten-up star or a beaten-up champion who gets annihilated and put through a table at ringside. Then Cody comes out with his Money in the Bank, cashes it in, wins the title in a cheap way, and then cries and salutes his dad. That doesn't seem right. Seems like Cody's got to win this thing straight up. So if Cody wins the briefcase, I always said that he needs to pick a specific time to cash it in. I challenge you at SummerSlam. So if he challenges Roman at SummerSlam, maybe they can keep Roman off of TV and Cody can just do the build by himself. Or maybe they can actually wait until next year's WrestleMania. Maybe Cody does hang on to that briefcase and then does wind up trying to cash in next year. But a lot can change in a year. So I just personally don't think that's going to be the case. I think WWE either purposely misadvertised this just for shits and gigs, just like they misadvertised the unification match at Backlash for the tag team titles, which apparently they're not going to do next week on SmackDown. And they even falsely advertised Brock for a little while on Backlash. So if they did this on purpose, I don't know why. It doesn't make sense, but it does make you wonder when you tie it in with the Roman Reigns stuff and his contract and his schedule and Cody. One idea I had on Twitter is that with Roman Reigns' absence, do you think that the Roman character after Money in the Bank is just going to get the hell out of Dodge because he doesn't want to be unfairly or unjustly cashed in on when he's in a compromising position or a vulnerable position? Because it would tie right into his I only wrestle when I say so shtick, right? He's the tribal chief. You don't tell me when I wrestle. I tell you when I wrestle. So if you crown a Money in the Bank winner at Money in the Bank, Roman just leaves TV. Can't cash in on him if he's not there, right? So I think that might be the reason they use on TV. And Heyman can come out with the Usos. Your tribal chief is not going to subject himself to a cheap victory and somebody taking advantage of him because they know nobody can beat him straight up. So he will not be on television until the briefcase winner comes forward and sets a date or something like that. I don't know. So if it does turn out to be Cody, then he can come out and talk to Paul Heyman and say, I want to call my shot. SummerSlam is when I want my shot against Roman Reigns. And then you do the match at SummerSlam, and maybe Cody wins, maybe he doesn't, I don't know. But stretching all of this stuff to WrestleMania seems like a little much. So I don't know what WWE's plans are, what their thinking is with that stuff. Doesn't make much sense to me with the Money in the Bank WrestleMania thing. So I think that was probably not going to be the case. I don't think they have the plans to, put the Money in the Bank winners against the champions at WrestleMania, because then what do you do at the Royal Rumble? But I think, Cody might have something to do with this. We will see. The whole situation is pretty interesting. Lacey Evans. Did you guys catch this on Raw? After the 5 chapters on SmackDown of her telling her story and, some of the gnarly details of that, her abusive father and the suicides and the drug overdoses and the rough childhood, her time in the Marines. They really seem to be presenting her as this tough guy, or tough woman, I should say, babyface type of character. And one of the things I said on the last few podcasts was that it feels like they could be building her for Ronda Rousey, because WWE is going to want to have somebody beat Ronda Rousey. Now, we're going to talk about a story here in a minute that Dave Meltzer is reporting that right now, Ronda versus Becky is the planned WrestleMania main event, or at least planned for WrestleMania next year. Maybe not the main event, but planned for the title. And that would be great. That would be a nice cherry on top of their long saga, especially if that's going to be Ronda's last match in WWE. But like I mentioned when she won the title from Charlotte at Backlash, in my mind, WWE should use Ronda Rousey's title run to really help get someone else over, to launch somebody else. Becky and Charlotte, they don't necessarily need to beat Ronda Rousey for the title. You should have somebody else do it, in my mind, just in my opinion. But it looks like they might actually be planning for Ronda to hold the championship all the way until next year, to where she maybe drops it to Becky. I don't know. Or maybe she just has a retirement match or a loser leaves town match with Becky at WrestleMania and there's no title involved and Ronda's already dropped it earlier. But I kind of thought maybe Lacey Evans was going to be the person they were going to have beat Ronda down the line, because she is a tough woman. She does look like she can scrap a bit, and she's big and she's strong. So she's a credible, her and Raquel even, I think are somewhat credible challengers to Ronda Rousey. So I was kind of hoping they would go in that direction. But now, after that really awkward segment on SmackDown the week before, last week, where, what's her name? Little Samantha ring announcer announced Lacey Evans and said, Lacey Evans asked that the crowd stand up and show the proper respect for her. And we were all like, damn, that's a heel move. And then she did. She comes out, but she's still kind of like teary-eyed, and she salutes the crowd, and they're half cheering her. Nobody knows what to make of any of this stuff. And then on Raw on Monday, she comes out again, and now they're reporting that the plan is for Lacey to be a heel going forward, which is real weird because all of the vignettes seem to imply all of this babyface sympathy that you're trying to garner for her. So to just pivot like that and just automatically be a heel, was this the plan all along? Does WWE did they really present somebody for 5+ weeks as a babyface in vignettes and then debut them as a heel? Is this fucking Brodus Clay or whatever? Or is it something like Kurt Angle? Remember when Kurt Angle came in and his intensity, his integrity and intelligence, and, he came off as this really, kind of arrogant guy who thinks he's a babyface, but really he's a self-absorbed heel. And if they are going to go this way with Lacey, that's fine, but this is awfully dark. It's like Kurt Angle with a dark twist. Kurt Angle is more funny, drinking his milk and, just being his weird, goofy self. If he started incorporating abuse and drug overdoses and suicides into his rhetoric there, that would have been really weird and a little bit more on the darker side. I don't know how I would have been able to react to that. So now that Lacey Evans is going to be a heel and she's going to come out and command that the fans respect her, I could see them doing that. That does make sense, but a lot of what they discussed in her vignettes prior to this doesn't really fit that. So I feel like they started... I'm curious if they had intended on her being a babyface and then maybe when the segment on SmackDown got goofed up, that made them change their mind, or was this really the plan all along? I honestly have no idea about the Lacey Evans stuff. It's really weird. But, now she's going to be on Raw. She'll be a heel. We'll see how that goes. There's a lot of good talent on Raw right now in the women's division. I thought she basically built this whole character on SmackDown and then moved over to Raw. Example number 975, why the brand extension, brand split is completely pointless at this point in 2022. There's been some chatter online this week too about potentially, doing away with Survivor Series, because Survivor Series every year has had to do with this stupid brand supremacy shit. Nobody's even on a brand anymore. Everybody's just on every show. Raw tag champs are on SmackDown. SmackDown tag champs are on Raw. Lacey's building this whole new persona on SmackDown only to debut on Raw. They don't know what the fuck is going on over there. Heads up their asses. So we'll see how Lacey Evans progresses on Raw. But Raw's got some good stuff. They've fallen ass backwards into some great, entertaining stuff on that show. Specifically, Ezekiel and Kevin Owens, which I didn't expect to be that fun, but it is. And so who knows? Maybe they can pull out some, really good stuff out of this Lacey Evans angle. But right now, it's weird to me. Do you agree? I don't know what's going on. So we'll keep our eye on it this week. If I feel okay in my voice and everything, and I'm over this ridiculous sickness, we'll do a Raw review on Monday and, talk about what goes on there, because I really wanted to do one last week. Lem Cruz over here to the chat before we get into our next piece of business, because I've been talking nonstop. I really want to make sure we get everything in our allotted time today. I want to see if there are any more messages I need to answer. Let it play out. Oh, they love to say that, don't you? Why does everybody think Ezekiel is Elias? Okay, here's what you have to do. Get a picture of Elias, right? And put it side by side with a picture of Ezekiel. It's clearly a different person. Elias has got so much chest hair and a beard, and Ezekiel looks nothing like him. Just open your eyes. God, what the hell's wrong with you guys? Yeah, Crow Reaper, she does seem like a female Sergeant Slaughter, which is cool because you could play both heel and babyface. But it feels like WWE doesn't even know what they're doing. And you hear that so much. Recently, Ember Moon or Athena did the interview with Chris Van Vliet, where I always call him Chris Van Vliet, where, she really highlighted and discussed the same type of stuff we've heard time and time again from other pieces of talent who talk about the day-to-day creative clusterfuck that goes on in that company. So with Lacey, they could have really told her, hey, you're going to be this big over babyface now. And then they're like, you know what? Let's make you a heel. I'm like, well, how can you do that when I just recorded and filmed 5 weeks worth of babyface vignettes? So this company, I don't know, but we'll see how Lacey Evans progresses. Want to talk a little bit about the CM Punk and Eric Bischoff beef that went on social media this week. And basically it stemmed from Eric Bischoff on his podcast, and he's had a lot of critical things to say about AEW, which a lot of people do. And Bischoff was always a guy that I couldn't stand, hated the little prick in WCW, but kind of made my peace with him when he got to WWE. I thought he was an excellent general manager. I had a lot of respect for him for sucking up his pride and going to work for the company that put him out of business. And he seemed to be all business the minute he got there, and he was just a television character, and he played that character well. My favorite GM in WWE history is Eric Bischoff. Met him on the Jericho Cruise, totally nice guy, and over the years, I've made my personal peace with him. However, he seems to have some sort of personal issue with AEW, and his issues don't really seem to be with AEW. They seem to be with himself. He's got something going on there. He is upset, unhappy about something, and some of his critiques about AEW, some of them hold water, but for him, of all people, to complain about these type of things is quite funny, especially when you think about the way he ran WCW. And one of his biggest issues, and something that we all see online every day, is that AEW isn't catering to the casual fans. They're not doing anything to bring in the casual fans. They're only catering to the hardcore fans. And they're not going to grow their audience. Everybody's very concerned about growing their audience when AEW has remained incredibly consistent in their ratings in their 3-year history, where WWE has been tanking for fucking 2 decades. So he feels that there's too much catering going on to hardcore fans, and that's hurting AEW, which is just fucking bizarre. Bitch, what the hell do you think you were doing with the NWO? Catering to hardcore fans. We all knew what was going on behind the scenes with Razor Ramon and Diesel leaving WWE, going to WCW. Eric Bischoff himself has said with his own mouth that we wanted to make more reality-based storylines for adults. These hardcore fans knew who Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were. They knew their connections to Shawn and Triple H. They knew about the Clique. WWE countered with DX. A lot of stuff that WCW was doing was specifically designed for the hardcore fan. Those hardcore fans helped draw in more casual fans, which really grew the wrestling audience. And then the Monday Night Wars happened. They ended. WCW went out of business. And WWE's had pretty much the market cornered on pro wrestling for the last 2 decades. The WWE chased all of the casual fans away, because casual fans did exist. I lived through the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars. I went to a lot of shows, and there were people there, just going to shows because they liked The Rock or they liked Stone Cold, but they didn't really, read wrestling news or get the Observer or read the internet or anything like that. They were just casual fans. So Eric Bischoff's issue with AEW is that a wrestling company is catering to wrestling fans, giving wrestling fans things they would enjoy. Only an idiot would look at the Forbidden Door pay-per-view and think that would hurt AEW. What do you want them to do? Everybody that says they're not doing anything to grow their audience, the WWE is the one that chased the fucking audience away. I'm not sure how much audience there is to be had, to be honest with you. The wrestling audience in general and pro wrestling as a whole is not very popular right now. So the fans that we have, the hardcore fans, AEW does have those fans. So the expert bookers all over Twitter and the snot-nosed pieces of shit that want to criticize everybody and really, really be aggressive in their critiques of AEW, not doing anything. What do you want them to do? They need to grow their audience and attract casual fans, and they need to create an Austin Rock-like megastar. That's what I hear from people. Okay, how do you do it? How do you specifically do that? How do you specifically make a Stone Cold or a Rock? How do you make a Roman Reigns? This shit doesn't happen overnight. AEW is less than 36 months old. 16 of those months was spent in a pandemic, wrestling in front of an empty arena. So they basically had like a year and a half of real, true wrestling content in front of an audience. And because AEW has not been able to attract the millions and millions of fans that WWE chased off, the fact that they're not able to bring those fans back within a 3-month span, half of which took place in a pandemic, they're viewed as a failure. In my mind, their ratings have been incredibly consistent. AEW has been in that 800,000 to million or 800,000 to 1.1 range pretty consistently every week, where WWE is a little bit more all over the place with their ratings. AEW does seem to have their fans. They do have fans that on average will tune in every week. You're not seeing too crazy fluctuations with their numbers. And for fans who compare them to numbers of yesterday, I hope you're comparing WWE's numbers to yesterday too, because back in the Attitude Era, WWE and WCW both were doing crazy numbers. And combined, the numbers were insane. But if Raw is doing a 1.5 and AEW is doing 1 million or 900,000, that is not nearly as out of balance as I think the fans want to make it. And plus, television ratings isn't the only way to grow your audience anymore. We just talked about, or to grow your company, I should say. We just talked about that a little while ago with, all of WWE's TV deals and shit like that. And nowadays, with the advent of the internet and DVR and YouTube and so many other ways to watch this product, if you are a casual fan, these casual fans that Bischoff and others say AEW needs to attract, those casual fans aren't going to tune in live every Wednesday. What do you guys do with TV shows that you watch or you might like? You DVR it. You watch it when you have time. If it's not your top interest, if it's not your most favorite thing to watch, if you're a sports fan, you're probably going to watch the playoffs and shit as they happen live. But any fucking TV shows, you're probably DVRing the shit, watching it when you get home from work or binge watching it or whatever. Casual fans could be the same way. I don't think... I'm sure you can draw in some casual fans, but putting the blame on AEW for all of the damage that WWE did to pro wrestling over the last 20 years, chasing so many fans that kind of liked it away with ridiculous, redundant, cheesy, stupid fucking content every week. It's so predictable. You can see these segments coming before they happen. You can smell a commercial break 30 seconds before they go. WWE is so fucking formulaic that it's become stale, it's become boring, and fans just don't give a fuck anymore. It is not on AEW to fix this in this short amount of time. And if they don't fix it, if they don't fix what WWE fucked up, the fans look at them as the failures. When they have put 20,000 people in an arena more than once, they've already had $1 million gate, they've acquired Ring of Honor, they have also been able to sign some huge free agents like Bryan Danielson and CM Punk. And when their next TV deal is up, they will get a better deal and they will be paid more next time because they are in no threat or no danger of any sort of cancellation. Their numbers, based on where they rank on cable TV, are up there in the top 3s, the top 5s, and all that shit, the demos and all that stuff they like to look at. The networks are, I'm sure they would like to have higher ratings, obviously, but the networks are fine with the ratings because of where they rank on cable television. And AEW is not in any danger of being canceled or anything like that. They're going to get a better deal. They might switch some networks around just like WWE did. I don't think they're not going to be able to bring in the type of money that WWE brings in, but they're going to be able to maintain a television home. And that's a given. So there's a lot of ways to grow your company. Just look at WWE. If the fans want to base the ratings on a company's growth, then why is WWE bringing in record profits with the lowest ratings they've had since like the mid-90s? WWE's ratings are tanking. Didn't they just break the lowest Raw rating ever just within the last 6 months or something? Lowest Raw rating ever. Highest profits in company history. Record profits. They just released at this past the quarter one earnings call. So it's not just about ratings anymore. There's lots of other ways to grow. There's lots of other ways to build your brand. And I think AEW is doing that. So if you think they need to attract the casual fans, how? Spelling bees? Musical chairs? Dumb shit WWE does? AEW does do that. They do have their silliness. They've got their Danhausens. They've got their, all their kind of goofy, tongue-in-cheek, goofing off type of stuff. They do that. So I think fans have been so conditioned to WWE's product that they want them to bring in casual fans. Do you want them just to turn into a miniature version of WWE? TNA tried that. Look how that worked out for them. When they actually had a concept that was unique. They had a talent roster that was athletic and young and were well known on the indies. And they had their 6-sided ring and they had their impact zone and they had their whole little identity there that the fans loved and ate up. because it was different than WWE. It was not the same thing you saw on that channel. But then AEW got a little too, or I'm sorry, TNA got a little too big for their britches, decided to bring in Hogan and Bischoff, turn their 6-sided ring into a regular ring, and become a smaller, miniature version of WWE, a company that basically just does the exact same shit. And it was almost an immediate failure. That very first week, they went head-to-head with Raw. Boy, don't you just wish you could just suck them words right back into your mouth once you decide on something? Because that was instant buyer's remorse there. Going head-to-head on Monday night against WWE was stupid, and they got their asses handed to them, and they had to throw in the towel just a few weeks later. So when fans say they want AEW to attract a casual fan, do you really want 2 WWEs around here? I mean, shit, we already have 3 WWEs, really, with Raw and SmackDown and this porn show NXT that they got going on Tuesday nights. Do we really want another company doing the exact same thing? I cannot believe I'm living in a universe where wrestling fans are complaining that a wrestling company is catering to hardcore wrestling fans. Do you hear yourselves? Isn't that what we want? Aren't we so sick of WWE shit? We need a company that actually cares about the wrestling fan. Should AEW try to grow their audience? Of course. But they don't want to grow their audience by doing exactly what WWE does, because we already have that show. Twice a week, Mondays and Fridays, Raw and SmackDown. Now you're going to put one in the middle doing the same shit? I don't think that's the answer. I don't think doing WWE style programming is the answer to bring in the casual fan, because WWE's doing WWE style programming and it ain't bringing in shit. So I don't know if people understand what the fuck they're saying sometimes, but I don't think this casual fan thing is even really a thing. I think the wrestling audience that is out there to be had is pretty much here. Attracting new fans to come in and say, ooh, I like this wrestling stuff, takes time. Fans have no patience. How many times have I mentioned that on this podcast? How little patience the fans have, how much patience they lack. They want their cake and they want to eat it too, and they want it yesterday. So in their minds, 3 years should be more than enough for AEW to fix all of the damage that WWE has caused over the last 20. And the fact that they don't do this, and they haven't done this yet, makes them a failure. They're also a failure because they've had unimaginably consistent ratings. These are things that fans consider failures, or I should say AEW tribalist haters think are failures, because it's all they got. AEW has been doing a lot of things right. They've made some missteps. They will continue to make some missteps. You know, they will do some things that we won't like, but welcome to pro wrestling. Every company does that. So both companies make mistakes. Both companies do shit that didn't get over. Both companies, drop the ball on a match finish, like the big barbed wire explosion match in AEW and how pathetic that looked. So these are things that are always going to happen. But man, the shit that the fans use to jump on or criticize a company blows my mind, because it's so incredibly transparent. Everything that they say is so deep-rooted in hate. They don't care about the facts of it. They just like to say it and stuff. So to everybody that says AEW should attract a casual fan, give me specific examples of how to do that. Because if it was that easy, I'm sure these companies would be doing that already to get more fans in. But the thing is, wrestling does have its niche. Wrestling does have its audience, and I think AEW has captured as much of that audience as they can. Wrestling, I think, in general, needs to start growing as a whole. WWE and WCW's competition with each other helped that. They were both responsible for growing. But WWE now, they're not fighting for their lives the way they were against WCW. They were on the verge of going out of business there for a while. So they had no choice but to go out there and put on the best show possible. When you watch Raw and SmackDown, does putting on the best show possible seem to be even remotely on the minds of anybody in WWE? They literally just phone these shows in with no love, with no effort, with no anything put into these shows. They just write it out. Here's what we're doing. Go out there and do it. Where AEW, you can tell there's a little bit more thought that goes into what they're doing. So WWE, we're in a weird time now. Competition is awesome in wrestling, but this time around is very different for a lot of reasons than WWE and WCW. Their competition had completely different rules, and there's completely different factors at play in the WWE and WCW war than there is in WWE and AEW, because it's a different time. There's much different money involved. The industry is different. The pace of the business is different, and WWE now For them to survive and to beat their competition, they don't do that by putting on the best shows. They do that by making the most money. You know, their Saudi Arabia deals, their Fox and USA deals. That's how WWE is, you know, trying to dominate the wrestling business, not by putting on the greatest shows possible. They still have good pay-per-views, and WWE can do great things from time to time. But overall, you know, it's been largely stale and boring for a long time. WWE are the ones to blame for the lack of wrestling fans out there right now. They chased them away. They caused this. They're the reason for it. So point the finger at them. Why isn't it their job? How come I never hear fans talk about WWE bringing in casual fans? Look at all the shit they do. Johnny Knoxville and all that crazy stuff. You would think that would bring in casual fans. But aside from WrestleMania time, it's not doing anything to the ratings. You know, SmackDown might go over 2 million a few weeks in a row, WrestleMania time. But other than that, they're right. You know, Raw's in the 1.5 to 1.7 range, and SmackDown's just slightly higher than that. So it's not like they're setting the world on fire either. They're not bringing in all these casual fans that the fans are so certain will fix everything in wrestling. Fans don't have any idea what to do. They can say it, but they don't know how to do it. So fine, AEW needs to attract casual fans. Give me specific examples how. I want to know. AEW should create a megastar, okay? Tell me how you do that. How does one do that? Every megastar WWE's ever had, they have fallen ass backwards into. You know, changing Roman Reigns heel, going in that direction was a great decision. But prior to that, they had no fucking clue what to do with him because they just insisted on making him a John Cena level type babyface, and the fans rejected it. They rejected Cena a lot too because WWE was too scared to do anything too creative with him, to go outside the box, to turn him heel, to do something that might shake up the wrestling business. They were just cool with the status quo, cool with just making the money they were making, and they didn't want to affect John Cena's status as a star or his merchandise or anything like that. They were too chicken shit to do anything fun. And we don't see that very much on AEW's side. They'll try anything over there. And I think that's cool. In a wrestling company, that's what I'd prefer. That's why I'm much more entertained by Dynamite these days than I am by SmackDown, because SmackDown's just so redundant where, you know, Dynamite, they really seem like they try to put together unique cards every single Wednesday. One of the best Dynamites we've ever seen just took place 3 days ago, especially with that main event. My God. So when fans have these criticisms, you have the right to have these opinions. That's fine, but I never really hear any answers. The fans say what they think needs to be done, but they don't provide any sort of specific examples how to accomplish this. It's easy to say it. Any fucking idiot can say it, but what do you actually do? How do you do these things that you claim AEW is too stupid to figure out? Doesn't sound like you have any idea either. So in terms of wrestling, I think where we are, we could be worse. We could be worse. I don't want, I really enjoy, as a wrestling fan, being catered to. There are wrestling fans on social media all over the place right now that somehow are offended that a wrestling company is thinking about them, putting their interest first. This bothers them for some reason. This is the reality that we live in this world, especially on social media and wrestling Twitter. This is the type of shit you hear all the time. It's ridiculous. These are the most flimsy critiques I've ever heard, and I don't understand what Bischoff or any other fan thinks AEW should do to bring in these casual fans, because the minute AEW starts turning into WWE, I'm turning the channel. So it's the last thing I want. I get enough WWE as it is, and I don't need another company running around there doing the same thing. Give me an alternative. Give me some wrestling. Give me something that I like, and they do. So, yeah, the Punk Bischoff stuff was pretty funny. Punk had barked back with a little insult on Eric Bischoff there when there was a clip of his podcast posted. And a lot of people do agree in principle with what Bischoff said. I do as well. Like, I kind of get where he's coming from, totally. But nobody's providing any real answers on how to accomplish this. And people are speaking as if this should be easy, and it's not. So just think a little bit, you know what I mean? So we'll keep our eye on how much more issues Bischoff takes with AEW. But there's something personal going on with him, I think, more than, he's leading it to believe here. But in terms of my news, I think that's it. I think that's all I got. I want to run through a little bit of the shows this week. I'm also going to cruise over here to the chat real quick, say hi. and then we will get out of here. I have not even asked you guys yet so to subscribe and hit the thumbs up button for me. So if you could do that, I would appreciate it. And don't forget, we're going to be here tomorrow night watching Judgment Day 2002. You know what I mean? Spaz Phoenix, thank you for the $5. People honestly burning down Twitter because Ruby finally won a match. Reminds me of all the video clips of Amber Heard ugly crying in her trial. Ruby defeated Ruby defeated Riho. Ruby Soho defeated Riho last night on Rampage to advance in the Owen tournament. I wasn't aware that fans had a problem with that. They're mad that Ruby Soho beat Riho. Why? Fans are mad about everything these days. I have no idea why they would even give two fucks about the outcome of that match. I don't. I'm glad Ruby won. She advances in the tournament, but I don't think I just don't understand why they would care. Bischoff versus Tony Khan, book it. I agree. I think maybe, Bischoff has no reason to be like jealous or envious of anybody. He's had a great career. He's got a great life, seems to be at peace and retired, often butt-fuck nowhere in Wyoming or wherever he lives. So for him to almost have a problem with somebody else, with a different wrestling owner running a company on TNT, maybe that just bothers him, and maybe he wants to ensure that they're not going to do better than he did or something like that. I have no idea. But it sounds like he's got some sort of an issue with Tony Khan. I mean, Bischoff does have a lot of experience in TV and in wrestling, so it's not like he's completely clueless or anything. It's just, a lot of his critiques, I don't feel like hold water. It's just a lot of empty solutions with no real specific examples of what to do. And that is weird. All right, caught up there. No other ones to worry about. All right, cool. Just want to make sure I didn't forget nobody. Let's talk a little bit about, I guess, SmackDown and Raw. Backtrack a little bit to Raw this past week. Nothing too crazy going on, but we did see Cody challenging Theory for the United States title. That match ended predictably in a disqualification when Seth Rollins attacked Cody Rhodes. We knew that was going to be the case there. WWE booking that match basically ensured that it's going to be a DQ because Cody's not going to win the United States title. Theory's not going to drop the United States title, but Cody's also not going to lose either. So Rollins attacked a DQ, and Rollins and Cody are setting themselves up for a blow-off. I'm assuming maybe at Hell in the Cell is what they're going to be going for there. I'm not sure if that will be in the cell or not, but that was one instance on Monday, because that's why I'm bringing this up, is a lot of fans are upset about DQ finishes and non-finishes and shit like that in WWE. Trust me, I understand that shit happens way too often, and it's really annoying, and they did it a lot on Monday night, but there are certain instances where non-finishes, I actually can understand them. This was one of them. I did not want to see anything other than a disqualification, to be honest with you. I did not want Cody to win the United States title, and I didn't want Cody to lose. That only leaves one option when the title is on the line. So maybe, if anything, they shouldn't have booked Cody versus Theory. They should have booked Cody versus somebody else and then Seth attacks. But it also gets Theory in the ring with, someone like Cody. So that was one situation where a DQ finish was perfectly fine with me. Didn't so much like it in the Asuka and Bianca match because Becky jumped in and attacked Bianca in that. So I didn't really love it there. But for the Cody and Theory match, I thought it was fine. We also saw Rhea Ripley finally joining Judgment Day at WrestleMania Backlash, helping Edge beat AJ Styles. On Monday, Edge debuted a new haircut, finally cut his hair. We have seen Edge with short hair before, but that was when he was retired. We've never seen him wrestle with it. So that's going to take some getting used to and should be pretty interesting. And they formally introduced Rhea Ripley as a member of the group, and she beat Liv Morgan in a one-on-one match. And like I said, Owens and Ezekiel are still extremely entertaining on the Raw brand. So they got good stuff at least going on over there right now. We'll see how this Monday goes. I'm going to try to be up here for a review. Voice pending, of course. And SmackDown last night, not going to get into everything, just a few key points here. Excuse me. Sami Zayn is basically trying to make himself an honorary member of the Bloodline or something. All of that interaction was pretty fun. And he was out in the ring with Riddle and Orton, and he actually accepted a challenge on the Bloodline's behalf to face Riddle. And if Riddle beat him, that means that Orton and Riddle would get a unification title shot against the Usos. So somehow Sami was able to accept this challenge. Adam Pearce came out and said, you don't have the authority to make that match, but I have the authority to make this one, so we're still going to do Riddle versus Sami. Riddle, of course, beats him. Sammy tries to apologize to Paul Heyman later on for maybe overstepping his bounds a little bit there. And I really like the Sammy and Bloodline stuff. I think that can be a lot of fun. RK Bro came out later on as well during a Bloodline promo with Roman and the Usos to officially challenge the Usos to a unification match. They said not tonight, but they will agree to it next week. So next week on SmackDown, Grand Rapids, Michigan, I think is the site for that. We are apparently going to get a unification match between RK Bro and the Usos. But again, this unification shit, take it with a grain of salt, because it sounds like this doesn't mean anything. WWE can say unification all they want. At the end of the day, I don't think the plan is to combine these titles. I think the plan is to have all the belts in the Bloodline so there can just be a sea of gold. And once they get that done, then they can explore how to start separating these belts back out. Still don't know if Roman's going to drop one of these things or Usos are going to drop one, or if they really are going to unify it. At this point, I don't even think WWE knows, to be honest. They have no literal idea what they're going to do. Other than that, on SmackDown, the only other interesting thing to mention, I should mention Riddle, too. At the end of that promo, after the Usos agreed, Riddle nailed Roman with a knee to the face, which is pretty cool. I would love to get a Riddle and Roman match. That would be a lot of fun down the road. And the only other thing I want to mention is Ronda Rousey, newly crowned SmackDown Women's Champion, beat Charlotte for the belt at Backlash. Charlotte, incidentally, is taking some time off. I believe she's going to marry Andrade. Of course, they ran the injury angle with her on SmackDown that she broke her arm or whatever, but she's fine. She's going to go take some time off, probably for the summer as well, maybe get married, and she will be back. In the meantime, Ronda is going to need some challengers. So last night, she issued an open challenge, which was accepted by Raquel Rodriguez, which is a pretty interesting match to put on this early. Raquel just got called up. She was a beast and a monster in NXT. And here on SmackDown, she's very generic. You know, she doesn't seem like she's big mammy cool. She seems like she's just a smiley person. This woman's a badass. She's big. She's strong. She's tough. She is somebody that I think could have a fun program with Ronda Rousey. Don't care too much for Raquel, to be honest, but in terms of her look and her size and her presence, it's there. It exists. And I was really high on her in NXT when she was starting to get rolling. So her gimmick on the main roster seems to be that she just smiles a lot. That's literally it. She just smiles. She should be killing people, not smiling. So the match wasn't that bad. Ronda did beat her kind of like with a quick roll-up pin, which was fine. Ronda retained the title. Raquel did get a title shot, but based on how she was in NXT, like we've seen with so many other call-ups, the magic just gets lost or something once you hit the main roster. So Raquel is almost too big and too good to really waste. I still think that she's got potential there on the main roster, but WWE's got to do a little bit more with her than her generic Titantron font and her smiling, WWE just doesn't care. It's so hard to describe. So that's kind of the latest with WWE. We got Hell in the Cell coming up in June. No matches announced for that yet, but we do have some matches announced for Double or Nothing on the AEW side of things. Now, last Wednesday, we were all here together to watch Dynamite, which was so fun because we got the MJF Wardlow contract signing, which was a lot of fun. Wardlow, I think, has got to get 10 lashes or some shit coming up on Dynamite. He also has to face Shawn Spears in a cage, I believe. And then once he does these things, he gets the match with MJF that's also going to have probably a lot of steps attached there. That was one of the better contract signings that I've ever seen. It was a lot of fun. And AEW is really got to tread carefully how they do this, because I feel like they're on the cusp of a megastar in Wardlow. He's really getting over. This whole thing has been fun. Both of these guys have done great. That's another critique I want to refer back to when it comes to the AEW criticisms. I see a lot of people saying they don't make new stars. What the fuck are you talking about? They don't make new stars. You might want to check out this feud right here. They're making two at the same time. MJF is arguably kind of already made, and he's only going to get bigger. And Wardlow is another guy that's just on the cusp that's getting a lot of positive reaction from the fans. and fans like to see him. He's over. He's a monster. He's an ass kicker, and he does really well in those security beatdowns, better than a lot of other monsters. Brock is real good at it too, but Goldberg was never that great. Brock was great. So's Wardlow, the way he tosses these guys around, beats the shit out of them. He's very intense. He's believable. He's a big badass monster, and he's bubbling. He's on the cusp here. So I'm curious how this whole thing is going to play out with MJF, when this match inevitably happens. And Wardlow is going to continue to be booked strong until that happens. We've seen all the opponents he's been defeating, even W. Morrissey most recently, and he's been plowing through everybody on his road to MJF, and that should be a pretty fun payoff. So that whole thing is a lot of fun. We loved the Owen Hart matches as well on Wednesday. We had Adam Cole defeating Dax Harwood and Tony Storm defeating Jamie Hayter to advance. We also had Martha Hart in attendance on Dynamite as well. She sat up in the box, and there was a lot of camera cuts to her. And to me, that was mind-blowing. I don't know if that woman has attended a wrestling show ever since her WWE days. She was at Canadian Stampede. She was even in the ring holding Oj after the win. I think she was shown on camera a couple times in 1998 as well, and prior to Owen's death. But once he died, she had, of course, the lawsuit with WWE. She was very angry, very bitter, and rightfully so about pro wrestling, and pretty much stayed completely out of the spotlight, just dedicating her life to her kids and the Owen Hart Foundation and the memory of her husband. And that's it. I don't think she's been in a professional wrestling arena since then. I could be wrong, but I don't think she has. So you got to think that, and I'm sure she's been in an arena. Maybe she's gone to concerts or something like that. But for Martha, and I've said this before, 23 years ago, coming up on the 23-year anniversary of Owen's death in just a few days, I went to the first pay-per-view after Owen Hart died. It was King of the Ring 99 in Greensboro. And I sat on the floor. I was in the fourth row. I sat next to Vlad, that super fan. And I remember getting into the building that night, walking down to find my seat. And the very first, I'm not shitting you, the very first thing I did when I got into the building is I looked up. I looked up to the ceiling, and just the look of that, and just like, motherfucker, that is high up there. I'm like, you mean to tell me he fell from there? It was just mesmerized by it. We've all been in big buildings before. You look up to the ceiling and stuff, but I was at the first show after that, and it was the only thing I could do was just look up there, and I was like, God, that's gnarly. That's so gnarly. So I don't know if, Martha, this is her first time actually taking this in, looking at a wrestling ring and looking above and knowing what happened there in the whole situation. It was surreal to kind of see her at a wrestling show, and very nice to see her there too, hopefully enjoying herself, and hopefully this was not dredging up too many unpleasant memories or feelings for her, because I do just have all the sympathy in the world for Martha and her kids in that horrible tragedy. So just the fact that she was there in attendance was pretty crazy. I'm assuming she's going to be at Double or Nothing, which I will also be attending. And for somebody that's been a big Hart family fan like myself, especially with Brett and especially with Owen, it almost feels fitting that I'm going to be in the building to watch the Owen tournament final and to see Martha Hart actually there in the flesh. It's going to be pretty cool. And we also had the other Owen Hart Owen Hart first round match, which main evented Dynamite. Darby Allin and Jeff Hardy fucking dream match. For some reason, they were able to make a stipulation for this one because it was a anything goes or no holds barred match or whatever, which allowed them to bring out tables and chairs and ladders. And we saw a absolute crazy match between these two. Holy shit. I was freaking out on the live stream during a couple of these spots. The big one off the ladder where Darby basically just dove onto the pew of chairs that was set up in the entranceway or in the aisleway there. He landed on Jeff. One of the ugliest bumps I've ever seen. I really hope Darby survived that okay. Jeff Hardy also did a swanton off the top onto the steel steps that were placed on their side on the outside of the ring, and it was just absolutely brutal, these two. And Hardy picked up a surprise win. I kind of assumed that Darby Allin would win this. He hit the coffin drop on Jeff Hardy, but then Jeff crucifixed him into a quick pin to advance. And that's kind of cool. I think I was assuming at the time, because those of you who are here on Wednesday, the very first thing I said after that pin, I was like, I'm going to defend this, because I was assuming that Twitter would have some sort of a problem with the outcome. I can't believe Jeff won. They should put Darby over. I thought that's what Twitter was going to say. Didn't seem like they cared too much. It seemed like everybody appreciated the match. I was happy to see that. But I was under the impression that some people might have an issue with this, because they have an issue with everything. So in my mind, this kind of like ensures that we might get something with these two guys again. I really like these two because they are very similar. I've said from the start that Darby Allin has dick in common with Sting, but he's got a lot in common with Jeff Hardy, and they feel like more of the same type of wrestler to me. And I always thought that Jeff Hardy should be a mentor to Darby Allin, not Sting. So the fact that they kind of had this dream match here, this could lead to some sort of like a torch passing type of match between them where I believe Darby will win the next one or the blow off or whatever they do. And, Jeff can kind of give him the torch now and said, it's your job to be crazy. I'm going to take a break on that. So I think down the road we can get Darby and Jeff again, and maybe they can turn this into some sort of a mutual respect, like I said, torch passing type of deal between the two of them. I think that would be a lot of fun. But that match on Wednesday was ridiculous. Great, great, great Dynamite. And that's what I'm talking about here, That was a wrestling company that gave us, the wrestling fans, a really great wrestling show. To find something wrong with that is just incredibly insane to me. We're all wrestling fans. Isn't that what we want? It's like good, awesome, crazy fucking wrestling. That's exactly what we got on Wednesday. So what's the problem? Last night on Rampage, not much happened really on that show. We did get a TNT title match and an Owen Hart match as well. We had Ruby Soho defeating Riho to advance in the Owen tournament. She'll move on now to the semifinals. Apparently, according to Spaz, some people had a problem with this outcome. I have no idea why. I don't have any issue with that at all. So somebody's going to have to fill me in why people were upset about that. I have no idea. Also, Hikaru Shida has been bumped from the Owen tournament. I guess she is injured, even though she came out and said that she was fine to wrestle. I don't even know what's going on with this situation, but Shida is out. And last night they introduced Chris Statlander as the new opponent for Red Velvet in the Owen tournament. And I think that match will happen on Wednesday. Velvet was in there with Jade Cargill and What's-Her-Face doing a promo. So that's going to be happening on Wednesday. And then in the main event, we had Scorpio Sky defeating Kazarian for the TNT title. This was a TNT title match. Sammy and Ty Conti were on the outside of the ring, at ringside, sitting in seats on the other side of the guardrail watching the match. And the whole time, this was great. They swerved us here. I thought this was really fun because we've been feeling like Scorpio could be on the verge of going babyface and Sammy and Ty Conti could be on the verge of going heel. And during the match with Kaz, Ethan Page comes in the ring and hits Kazarian with the championship that Scorpio Sky doesn't see, allowing Scorpio to hit his finish and turn on Kaz. Then he finds out what Ethan Page did. The two start arguing a bit, and you feel like they're going to come to blows, and then Scorpio turns around and nails Kazarian instead, and he's going to be remaining a heel. So I really like that because it wasn't predictable. And I saw some fans, kind of complaining about that, and just like they did with the Julia Hart stuff, like, oh shit, I thought that she was going to turn there. And I think a lot of that is WWE's conditioning. We are not watching WWE. What we might be used to seeing there isn't necessarily what we're going to see here. And that's another thing to me. That's a very positive, that's a very positive part of AEW is the fact that they don't just go with the status quo or what's predictable or what fans would expect to see in WWE. They try to keep everybody on their toes. Is this going to work every time? No. It's going to fall flat a couple of times. I still think that Sammy and Ty Conti should just go heel because they essentially are heels. But AEW does things differently. They don't do things by the WWE book. And you like to see that because you need differences. You need alternatives to something that we've seen for so long. And I think that AEW is doing a relatively good job of doing that. And even on Dynamite, one thing I forgot to mention was that Tony Nese and Danhausen stuff. Danhausen actually wrestled a match on Dynamite and got beaten like 3 seconds by Tony Nese. He ate a knee to the face, got beat immediately because fans are like, oh, what's this guy going to do? This guy's a joke and all that. I'm like, I said right from the start that Danhausen wasn't signed to come in and work with Hangman Page for the title. He was designed to come in and be a comedy wrestler and a guy to not really be taken seriously. He got hammered into the ground on Wednesday and then continued to get attacked until Hook came out and saved him. And now they're kind of teasing a Hookhausen team. And this should be perfect for Danhausen because now Hook can kind of teach Danhausen how to fight. This can be a lot like, you know what this tag team is? It's head cheese. It's the same thing. Steve Blackman and, a legit, tough, serious fighter along with a goofball. It's head cheese. That's exactly what Danhausen is. So what I'm hoping is that during their little alliance here, Hook can start teaching Danhausen maybe some moves, how to fight. That would be a good way to establish a little bit of credibility with Danhausen, since every fan looks at him as a comedy wrestler, even the people who love him. I love Danhausen, but there's a lot of haters out there. And what you saw on Dynamite should have pleased you. That was AEW acknowledging, saying, we know this guy isn't going to go out there and be winning titles. You know, he's kind of been a comedy wrestler up until this point. He's done a great job getting himself over. The fans love him. He sells a ton of merchandise, so they brought him in. But some of these, based these critiques, these people feel like he's coming in to be some sort of big star. No, he's not. He's coming there to do what he's doing. He's coming there to be Danhausen. That's it. So putting him now with Hook, and maybe slowly you see Danhausen progress into being a little bit tougher of a competitor, is a good story there. And I think the Hook and Danhausen stuff is a lot of fun. And we saw them have a little bit of fun, too, after the show went off the air on Dynamite, with Hook putting the submission on CM Punk and him selling it. And fans, of course, had a big problem with that, too. Meanwhile, WWE's released multiple DVD sets of them just goofing the fuck off after Raw. That Raw After the Bell, they've done a couple of those, right? And it's just the segments of them messing around. Austin swimming in beer, Kane doing spinneroonies. That's fun. I have no idea why fans have this, just refuse to have any fun in their lives, and instead want to criticize. I'm like, they were just having fun, goofing off for the live audience. Stop taking shit so damn seriously. It's something WWE has always done, and I've always loved what they've done. I went to a lot of those Raws back in the day where they would hang around and fuck around with the crowd. It was fun. So I don't have any real issue with that either. And AEW's use of Danhausen right now, I think, is pretty good. They're probably using him exactly the way they should, acknowledging him that he's not really a credible threat in the ring, but with a little help and a friend, maybe he can grow into someone a little bit tougher. You know what I mean? So I think that's pretty much it for my notes here. I want to apologize again for my just horrible voice and my occasional nose blowing and a couple of sneezes I had through this podcast, but I really didn't want to not come up here because it's been a while. So thanks for hanging out today. Let me cruise over here to the chat. I got a couple of minutes just to knock out some more super chats. There's one up here earlier from How Wheezy I didn't see. Do you ever see, and thanks again, dude, for that 5. That was a while back. Do you ever see the first ever intergender WrestleMania main event match in the future? No, I don't know. Intergender WrestleMania main event match? I can see a intergender WrestleMania match. Not sure about a main event. And what the hell would the main event be? I've always wanted to see Charlotte versus Randy Orton. I've mentioned that match a few times. But in terms of it main eventing a WrestleMania, I'd say no, but WWE sure could get a shit ton of publicity if they did do that for a WrestleMania main event one year. Spaz, I got yours earlier. How Wheezy is another $2 from you. Oh, I sent you another super chat earlier. Just read that. And thanks for the $2 making me aware of that. Appreciate it. Barry, you're right about Ronda. Ronda's been doing a lot of smiling too. I really think Ronda should just be a heel, but I don't think she has that many challengers right now. We know we're going to get Bayley back pretty soon. Alexa Bliss turned back up on Monday Night Raw this past week after taking some time off, and she actually had some sinus surgery recently too. You could tell that she looked a little bit different. I'm glad that she's back 100% and she's actually back on TV. Hopefully WWE will do something with her, but she was kind of back out to being regular Alexa Bliss, but still had the doll. So what the fuck is that about? I don't know, man. Oh, yeah, Matos, in 1489, they did tease Bucks and Hardys. So they could do Hardy and Darby again at Double or Nothing if they wanted to, but the Bucks and the Hardy Boys do seem like a good possibility. They should do that because that's a dream match. I know it has happened before, but maybe not on a big scale. And again, I'm going to be at Double or Nothing, so that's a lot of fun to be able to see that match live because that's a dream match. I don't know where Rock's daughter is going to be and where she's going to be placed. I'm not even sure how she's progressing. I know she did get hurt, but I'm not sure. Bayley to face Ronda, probably. I mean, I don't know who else Ronda really has at the moment, if she's going to do the open challenge thing or if she's actually going to have a pay-per-view opponent. We don't know. No, Luigi Draw Gaming, I'm not up to date on NXT UK. I'm not even up to date on regular NXT, so I'm way out of the loop there. But thank you for that super chat, Luigi Draw. And yes, thoughts go out to the people of Buffalo who had another one of those just lovely shootings that we see every goddamn day in this country. So yeah, thoughts are with everybody there. But I got to sign off now. I got to head to work. I appreciate you guys being here and being patient with my voice and everything. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Judgment Day 2002, we're going to do a watch along of that. Link is in the description if you want to go over there or go down there and save the video now. We'll catch you tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for Judgment Day, and that'll be fun watching Hogan drop a world title. I'm excited. You guys have a great rest of your Saturday and your Saturday evening, and I'll catch you tomorrow for Judgment Day.